Hello again. ANC KwaZulu-Natal provincial chairperson Sboniso Duma yesterday had to rein in some delegates from KwaZulu-Natal who disrupted party president Cyril Ramaphosa's opening speech as he was about to deliver the political report. Some KwaZulu-Natal delegates cheered for former President Jacob Zuma and booed Ramaphosa in song. For more on this, we're joined by political analyst Professor Bheki Mngomezulu in terms of what to read into that moment, if anything at all. Prof, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you very much for joining us. Perhaps let's remind our viewers of that moment. Let's take a look, listen at this. Professor Mngomezulu, I'm not sure if you got to hear that as the former president was making his way to his seat, the president of the party had to pause for a little bit. Gwede Mandashe approaches the podium, but the mic is on and the president is saying, Bafunu Zuma, and he then responds to say, Bayege, lababak sapotayo, they are quiet. And he then goes on to say, the president goes on to say, essentially meaning that I want everybody to keep quiet. If you saw that moment, what did you read into it, especially if we take a look at the race for president of the party? A colleague bringing this to my attention that could this perhaps indicate that this elective conference, we might see some upsets? It could go down to the wire between President Cyril Ramaphosa and Zweli Mkhize.
No, thank you very much, Sister Dodo. Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your listeners. Yes, indeed, I watched that with a keen interest, more especially the part where Gwede Mandashe was not assisting the situation. Because ordinarily, you would have expected him to just stay clear of this whole commotion, but instead he went to the president and said to the president, yeah, just allow them to sing, don't stop them, there are those who are supporting you. You already have a situation whereby the conference is divided and we are basically coming with a liter of paraffin and you are pouring it on the already burning fire, and then you are not helping the situation at all. But basically, what you can read from this is by asking a very profound question. How did we get here? In other words, what we saw happening, it not just happened by mistake, it's something that has a history behind it. So what have been relations between the president and the province of KwaZulu-Natal, for instance? And then also the fact that Sboniso Duma has saved the day for the second time. You recall that when there was a provincial conference in KwaZulu-Natal, wherein President Ramaphosa was supposed to close that conference by virtue of the fact that he's the president of the ANC, people did not want him to address that meeting until Sboniso Duma had to come in and then calm the motions, and then the president was able to talk. Something similar happened also yesterday when the situation broke out. Sboniso Duma also had to reason with his colleagues to say, okay, as much as you might be unhappy about APC, but in this case, just allow the president to talk. Only then did calm prevail. So it basically tells you that the president does not enjoy a large following or support from KwaZulu-Natal. And then, of course, there are other provinces where discussions have been underway. And you can see upsets, of course. If anything, you may find that the president will also survive with a slight margin, like he did in 2017, where he only survived by only 179 votes.
Much has been said about the ANC's elective conferences essentially being branch elective conferences, if you will. This is a branch conference. We've heard that phrase being bandied about, that the former president Jacob Zuma did not ascend to the throne where other former leaders and the sitting president is, and other top leagues were sitting, and he chose to sit with delegates. What did that tell you?
I think he's being honest. You remember there was an interview, not in fact an interview, he once addressed ANC members and he indicated that now that he is no longer president of the country, he is going back to his home branch in Nkandla, and he will be a branch member, an active branch member. And he said, I will come back here, to quote him, he said, I will come back here as a branch member and I'll come here as a delegate. And that is exactly what he's doing. So he made a promise and he's fulfilling that promise that his presence there is not just as an official, but he's there as a delegate from his home branch in Nkandla. So he's doing exactly what he had promised he was going to do.
There are delegates, though, who are yet to set foot into the conference, missing the chunk of the start of the first 2 days. My colleague Bali Tetani is speaking to a delegate from Mangaung in the Free State, indicating that they're still busy with registration and accreditation processes.
No, that's a cause for concern. As you would recall, you guys in the media were covering this thing extensively yesterday, where the delay was over 7 hours. And that is not right. But on the other hand, you better start the conference late, address all the issues, than rush to start the conference when you still have other issues that are pending. Because whatever outcome that you come up with will come back to haunt you. So in this case, it's true that there are some delegates who are delayed, but then rather wait for them to be registered, get accreditation, and only start once you are sure that everyone that is supposed to be there is there. Because if you fail to do that, some of those will be left outside, may crowd foul and then say, the reason why our candidate did not win is because we were excluded from the conference, and that will then lead to some legal issues. And I don't think the ANC wants that. So as much as it is concerning that there are necessary delays, but those delays have to be there in order to make sure that when the conference starts and that when the nomination process starts, everyone who is supposed to be inside is inside. Then that will assist the ANC going forward.
Prof, what then should the everyday person looking at this think about the party with 2024 in mind, right, with the general election in mind? And so you hear leaders who tell you a lot about the fourth industrial revolution, some even alluding to the fifth industrial revolution. This is not the first elective conference that they are holding. They've also got the benefit of technology. It is 2022. And so when these problems play themselves out so publicly, what confidence does it inspire in the electorate?
None whatsoever. None whatsoever, Sister Dudu. In fact, I was saying yesterday, talking to some friends of mine, what would have worked best for me would have been for these registration processes to start at a provincial level, so that by the time delegates converge at Nasrec, it's a matter of verifying all those registrations and making sure that no one was left out. Then the process would have been faster. And coincidentally, on the day when the ANC conference started, we were on stage 6. What a coincidence. So which means then that because those who were organizing this particular conference were well aware that we are negatively affected by load shedding, then a contingency plan should have been put in place so that in the event that there is a power outage, then you don't stop the process, you find other ways of dealing with the situation. And the other coincidence is that we have just concluded our matric exams, so then one would have expected that we should have drawn lessons from how the exams were conducted. Some of the glitches that happened there would also affect this particular conference. So then put some contingency measures in place so that you don't delay the process. But be that as it may, this is where we are. So which means your point about the 4IR would also not work. You recall that when the matric exam started, there was a school that could not conclude the computer course or the computer exam simply because power went off. When they started generators, those computers crashed. So it means that this particular ESCOM issue is indeed a hot potato, not just for the ANC, but for us as a country. Then it means that whenever we convene meetings of this nature, we should take precautionary measures, being mindful of the reality of ESCOM and all the negative effects thereof.
Prof, you spoke of the result of the president position possibly causing an upset. If you take a look at the deputy president position, which is equally important, you've got Paul Mashatile, Ronald Lamola, and Oscar Mabuyane. And so should Zweli Mkhize, or in the event that he is then chosen as the president of the party, what direct impact does that have on the deputy president position? Could we see somebody being raised from the floor?
In fact, for all the positions, there is a possibility that some names could be raised from the floor, starting from the president all the way down to the treasurer general of the ANC. So there is always a possibility for that, which is why I was telling some of your colleagues in the media space, saying that those of my colleagues who are saying that the likes of Deputy President Diti Mabuza has been thrown into the dustbin of history, it's a view I don't hold. Because it's still possible that you may find that not just Diti Mabuza, but any other member of the ANC who is eligible to be elected can have the name raised from the floor, and as long as that person meets the 25% threshold, the person will be included in the list. So there is always a possibility. But in the event that, for example, the scenario you are painting, in the event that Dr. Zweli Mkhize emerges victorious as the president, the deputy president position should not necessarily be an issue. If, for example, the three that are currently there are the ones that are remaining, then whoever emerges victorious will have no choice but to work with whoever would have won, in this case, if Dr. Zweli Mkhize wins. But then if someone is nominated from the floor, that person missed the 25% threshold and goes on to win the race, then so be it. So you don't have a choice. Once someone has been elected fairly so, there is no way you can disqualify that individual, and you are forced to work with him or her, whether you like it or not.
There are some sectors of society that hold the belief that in the past 2 days we have seen again how the African National Congress fails to manage itself, and by extension is failing to manage South Africa. The Treasurer General report will also be presented to delegates again today. We do know that the party has been struggling with finances, even paying some of their own staff members. And so by extension, what should that tell us about how they have financially managed the country?
No, truth be told, Sister Dudu, currently the ANC is in a financial crisis. For the very first time in the history of the ANC, you had a number of ANC staff members who were not paid, not just for 1 month, but for a couple of months. And in fact, I watched with a keen interest the gala dinner, whereby if you wanted to sit on the table next to the president, you had to fork out not less than 1.2 million. So then one wonders what that money would be used for. If the money would be used to try and strengthen the coffers of the ANC, then I'll be appreciative of that. In fact, I'll be happy, because it will mean that those ANC staff members who have been going without pay will eventually get their money. But then if they use that money for other purposes, then I'll have a concern about that. The reality of the matter is, in the history of the ANC, for the very first time, the ANC is in a financial crisis. As to how they'll get out of this dilemma, I'm not too sure. More especially because we have the Party Funding Act active now, so which means that you can no longer source as much money from the funders as you would ordinarily do in the past. Right now, you have some regulatory framework which will then dictate to you how much money you can source from your funders, and then we will now have to activate your membership and make sure that they pay their membership fees. But the number of supporters is also going down. So which means then this problem is likely to stay for a bit longer. But at the moment, the Treasurer General, the current Treasurer General, Paul Mashatile, is facing this problem because he's the one who is supposed to table this report, which I anticipate will not be an appetizing one, given the problems I've just outlined.
Professor Bheki Mngomezulu, thank you very much for availing yourself this afternoon.